Welcome to Focusing Pathways. In June 2023, focusers came together at the Advanced and Certification Weeklong in Dublin. It was here that Elaine met Josine van Noord from Holland. When Elaine realised that Josine had learned focusing from Marta Stapert, she decided to record an impromptu interview. Marta Stapert is renowned for her work on focusing with children. Her book on this topic is listed in the episode notes. What emerged during the interview, however, was Josine's incredible personal story of survival. As a very young child during World War II, she spent almost 4 years in the jungle of Indonesia in a prisoner of war camp. As an adult, focusing helped her to access what was hidden in her body from that childhood experience, and also to forgive those who had held her captive. I imagine that, like me, you'll be both astounded and moved by Josine's story.
I like to talk about Marta because she was a big influence on so many lives.
Yeah.
I mean, she worked for 20 years in a school with difficult children, and she learned focusing to the teachers and to the children.
Okay.
So the teachers could really do focus with the children, and they would understand.
Yeah.
And I met her Marta in Holland because I was born in Indonesia, and I am a war child. There was a world war going on, and I was born in that. And, well, it's not easy, of course, when you're so small and you end up in prison camp. So I came out, and the elder generation, my mother and the people of her age, they never wanted to talk about what happened in the prison camps. They wouldn't. Mm-hmm. Even if you asked, they say, oh yes, of course, it wasn't very pleasant, but they wouldn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. So, but I was very small. I was a baby when I went in, and I wanted to know why I had certain anxieties. Why am I afraid of this or that? And then somebody said to me, why don't you do regression therapy? Mm-hmm. And the regression therapy the therapist was Marta, because she also did regression. She was a children's, therapist, and she did regression therapy. So I was on her couch for half a year, and I went back to prison camp, and I got these images, because you can have images from about when you are 3 years old, you can have images. And that wasn't very pleasant. And then afterwards, Marta said, I think we've had all the bad stuff now, so why don't you start focusing? And that's how I started, because of her. Mm-hmm. And she took me to a course, and I decided I like it. And focusing is going back to in your memory, but not what is in your head, but what's left in your body of things you remember. And that worked for me. I went inside like she taught me, and she was very strict. I mean, when I started, sort of in a laughing way, telling stuff like, "Oh yes, of course, it wasn't pleasant," like the elder generation, she said, "Why are you laughing? There's nothing to laugh about." I still remember that, And she put me on a video, and she said, "Look at you. You are laughing all the time while you're telling terrible things." And I said, well, then I realized that it was the other generation that used to tell things like that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be serious about it. So then I started focusing. That's how I started.
Wow.
And I thought it was wonderful, because your body remembers things that your mind your mind thinks you remember things, but it's completely different from what your body remembers. And that was fascinating.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people really, when they started focusing, being quite surprised because they didn't know that they knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've seen the most incredible results, really, about people that in war situations too, because I feel drawn to people in war situations because I want to help them. And I want to tell them, you don't have to stay in this situation. You can get out.
Yeah.
And of course, there are many more ways, I suppose, but focusing is a good way for me and for many more. Thousands of people are focusing. And I've been focusing, for instance, with traumatized Hungarians. They had a revolution against the communism. And that was incredible, really. I mean, we cried together about, you could see the holes of the executions in the street, in the walls of the houses. You could see it. And then I went to a conference and there were Japanese, and we were Japanese prisoners at the time, and it really was a long time. Almost 4 years we were put behind in the jungle of Indonesia, where I was born, behind barbed wire, and we couldn't get out, and we were starving, and they were beating the women, and we had no food, and terrible situation. And then I went to a focusing workshop, and so I was taught the Japanese evil, and I went to a focusing workshop, and there were Japanese people in it, and I thought, oh God, because I was taught, you don't buy Japanese stuff, you don't do anything with them. And so I just stayed away from the Japanese for 2 days. And then I realized, especially one of them, a lady, and she was a Buddhist lady, she told me later. And then I realized how very nice she was. And I threw it all overboard, all of the old generation. I just thought, okay, it worked for you, it doesn't work for me. I want to know why I'm afraid of certain things. So I'm going to do it differently. Well, it's normal for young people to do that, isn't it? You want to do it differently from the parents.
Yeah.
So I never talked with my mother about it.
Okay.
No, I didn't want to hurt her feelings. I mean, she has struggled so hard to get us through the prison camp that many babies of my age died.
Oh. Okay.
So she struggled so hard. I didn't want to make it difficult for her.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And was it like a bodily sensation of letting it all go, or what did you have
also
to meet?
it was physical, and it was in my mind too.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, it was both. And I just walked up to this Japanese lady, and I focused with her, and something sad came up for her too, and I realized she had a problem with something else, because after the war, the Japanese were bombed with you call them atom bombs, the really heavy ones, the bomb.
Oh yeah.
What you call them?
I'm trying to think.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Yeah, I know I know what you're talking about. All right.
Nagasaki and those places, they were bombed, and so the Japanese that I was talking to, they had lost their grandparents.
Okay.
That way.
Yeah.
And we cried together. Oh, we did.
Wow.
Because of the craziness of war, and how I lost my whole childhood in it, and they lost their grandparents, and so we became friends. And I went to Japan, and I focused with them, of course, but I was invited to the, what's it called, the Japanese center, and it was near the Fujiyama, the big mountain there.
Okay. Yeah.
And they invited me to go with them to the, what is it called? Anyway, and they said, well, we have a sort of tub downstairs, a hot water tub. and it's with water from the mountain, from the Fujiyama. I don't know
Amazing.
what you call it.
Yeah.
And they said, we would like you to come with us. So I did, and we were in sort of cellar, stony room with a stream going through it.
Mm-hmm.
And they put me on a wooden stool, and I had to undress completely. So I thought, okay, I'm in Japan, so
Yes.
okay, I'll do what they say.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat there stark naked, and they started washing me,
Oh, wow.
washing my hair even.
Oh, okay.
They washed me all over,
Yeah, yeah.
And then they went with me into the hot spring
Wow.
thing. So, well, you can't stay mad at people that are so sweet. And they gave me a kimono, and they tried everything they could think of to make the war,
Mm-hmm.
make it up for the war. So I have really good friends, and you know what? I wrote about this, and I said they had a sort of toughness of going on with the bombing, etc. Right after the war, and they had a sort of atom bomb. You call it atom bomb? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's an atom
I think
bomb.
it's
Yeah.
an atom bomb.
Yeah.
Anyway, they had a sort of toughness of surviving that I recognized.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
we had
okay.
that in common because I had to survive and
Yes.
they had to survive.
Right.
And we became real friends, and they still visit me. I still keep in touch with them.
Yeah. Wow.
And then that's not about Marta, but that's just what Focusing did for me.
Yeah, but there must have been real healing, like
It was healing.
on both sides. Especially, what really struck me there was when you cried together
Yes, we
about
did.
it. Oh, that
The three of
that's,
us. Yeah.
Yeah, there must have been incredible healing in that, and
Yes.
almost like that washing of
Yeah,
a washing
later on.
away of
Yeah.
all of that, and like that, even that resonating, like that, knowing what they went through and they knowing what you went
Yeah.
through, just something, when it resonates together, it just transforms, doesn't it? It changes, and
It certainly
Yeah.
did. It really did.
wow.
So that's all because of Marta. Because Marta dragged me into focusing.
Into focusing, yeah,
And
amazing.
the funny thing is, I have two beautiful daughters, and they saw what was happening to me, and they asked me, "Oh, maybe we should follow a course." Of course, not with me. We can't do it with your own mother.
Yeah.
Because if you know people too well with focusing, you start filling in. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know them, and you just have your own thoughts.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's disturbing. You better do it with somebody that.
Yeah, because you feel like you know what's wrong.
Yeah.
Even so, rather than trusting their process,
Yes.
you feel like interrupting it or kind of
Yeah.
helping, I guess.
Yeah, you fill in.
you can't.
You fill in. That's the word.
You do, yeah. You fill
Yes.
it in, yeah.
So Marta didn't do it, and from then on we became friends. And I admired her, and she was a really tough lady. Even maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm not sure. But I saw her in her coffin,
Yeah.
and she looked so very white, but she looked so strong.
Right.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Somebody in a coffin,
Yeah.
looking strong.
Wow. Yeah.
And she did, and I just thought,
She really embodied that. So
Yes.
yeah.
yes, she did.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to find the poem, because if you read the poem of Rob, you will understand, because he felt exactly the same about Marta.
Yeah.
You know, he admired her too,
Yeah. Incredible.
and she wasn't a sweet lady. She wasn't. She was tough.
Yeah,
She
she
was-
needed to be.
I guess so, because working with children that are not easy.
Yeah.
20 years, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And she's a good teacher, and I'm still seeing a friend of hers, and we both talk about Marta, how special she was, especially since she wasn't really sweet, Not
Yeah.
that, like I see many sweet focusers here,
Yeah.
and I almost feel homesick for Marta with a tough attitude.
You need some of that.
I need it. Yes,
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, no. Oh, that's about what I can tell about Marta. I could tell more because she was
Mm-hmm.
older than me, and she was 4 years old in the war. In Holland she lived. I lived in Indonesia, but she was a little older, so she was 4 years old. And they had people, how do you call that? Like that had to be underground. Jewish people
Yeah.
or people in the resistance.
Yeah.
And they were hidden in her house.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
she said, I still remember my parents being worried that when the Germans came to look for those people, at least they didn't know that there were people there, but
Yes.
they looked everywhere.
Yeah.
And then she said, I still remember that being 4 years old, I was so, don't talk about it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So her parents were very worried that she might just say something because she was so small.
Yeah.
So, you know, she had been in the war too as a child,
Okay.
a little older.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm grateful that I was a baby only.
Yeah.
Because I many things. My mother said, I never told you we were in special circumstances. I never did that. Because I couldn't make you worry about something that you didn't know. You didn't know normal life. I was so small when I went in. She said, you didn't know.
Yeah.
After the war, she said to me, put this cup in the cupboard. And I said, what is a cupboard? I'd never seen a cupboard. I was 5 years old.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, so many things. I'd never realized living in a house. I didn't. We lived in barracks behind barbed wire in the jungle. I didn't know about normal things. So I had to learn all that. That's why I'm so bad with computers. I tell people, you know, I've had to learn so many things.
Yes.
That were normal to other children.
Yeah.
I just don't want to spend energy on this and on my old age. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that must have been an incredible, can you remember a little bit more about that experience of change? So when you were so young, like to know one way of life and then having to kind of rediscover how to live all over again.
I was lucky because when I was 5 years old, the Indonesians, we came out of prison camp and we were put with God knows how many families in one house. And then the Indonesians started murdering us. It was really true.
Oh, wow.
So there were gangs of young Indonesians and they tried to murder every European that they saw on their way, and they were running through the streets and it was really scary. So I remember being scared of them.
Yeah.
That's so strange. That's not so much of the Japanese.
Okay,
but
yeah.
I was more scared. I was older.
Yes.
I was 5, and I remember those gangs of youngsters running through the street, you know, with those enormous knives and bamboo spears and whatever. So we had to go. My mother found a way of flying in an very old aeroplane.
Oh,
it wasn't a normal aeroplane.
Yeah.
It was how do you call it? A bomber.
Right, okay.
There were no windows.
Yes,
we would just sit on the floor, you know. And so that plane brought us to Bangkok.
Okay.
And Bangkok was paradise to me.
Yeah.
The people were nice.
Yeah.
And they were friendly. And the food, I can't explain that.
Yeah.
After 4 years of hunger.
Yes, yeah.
That food, I smelled it in the streets. There was food everywhere.
Yeah.
And that was the best year of my childhood.
Wow.
Because afterwards we had to go to Holland. I had to go to school. Not that I wanted, but I had to.
Yeah.
And I came in Holland in the winter with clothes from other people because we didn't have winter clothes. We had nothing. Everything was taken away.
Yeah, yeah.
So we didn't have anything. So I had to wear, you know, woolen dresses and shoes. I'd never worn shoes. You know, it was terrible.
Yeah.
I felt very uncomfortable. And then we came into this country. I made several paintings of this. And we came to the country. I remember that we on an enormous boat, were all filled with refugees from Indonesia, European refugees. And I remember we were all outside because they said, this is Holland. And I thought, okay, where? Because I had a good year in Bangkok, but we didn't want to leave there really. But I thought, okay. And I looked, and there was nothing. Because the canal going to Amsterdam, it is higher than the country. The country is lower than the canal.
Yeah.
And I looked around this grey, cold land, and I thought, where is the land?
Yeah.
Because it was down there, you know. That was crazy too.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't find the land.
Yeah.
I only and the seagulls. I remember the seagulls. I made a painting of that. But I mean, there were so many different things going on. And then in Holland, after the war, they were not interested in refugees at all. Also, because we spoke Dutch.
Okay.
So we didn't have the problem that refugees now have.
Yes.
But I mean, I worked in a refugee camp because I feel connected to them.
Yeah.
And but we had a horrible time. It was incredible. Holland, I was getting used to Bangkok and the flowers and the fruits and the trees.
Yeah.
You know, and the canals and food. And then you come to a grey country that's really cold, and you have to wear itchy woolen things, you know, and shoes on your feet, and it was horrible. So it took quite a while to get used to that.
Yeah. Wow.
So you know, that's one story.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And in terms of, like, you know, when you found focusing, did you find a lot of those like memories, even though you know, even as a baby, you know, the way the body remembers things.
Yeah.
Did you find that they came up, but you were didn't have like an actual story to go with it?
No,
or
I didn't have actual memory, but well, I'm sort of mixed up about the regression and the focusing.
Sure, yeah.
One went over into the other, you know.
Okay, yeah.
So, but I was really surprised that I got such clear images. That's why I painted it.
Okay. Wow.
I was so certain about some things, you know.
Yeah.
And I was surprised because, when I started focusing, I was a mother of 2 children and grown up, somewhere in my late 30s or something.
Yeah.
But I could remember things through regression and focusing. I don't know the exact difference in those days, but anyway, I was surprised. I could even see a Japanese soldier. It was a Korean soldier, you know, with a gun, etc. And so I could even remember that, and I didn't know I knew.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And my husband too, he learned focusing, and he didn't want to, but he thought that Gentlin, and he talked to Gentlin, and he thought he was so interesting.
Yes.
So he did four focusing sessions, or 5, with Marta.
Okay.
And he said he came home and he was so surprised because he was in his 40s, and he remembered a terrible experience when he was 6.
Oh.
And he was. I can still see him coming in. He said, "I didn't know I knew that."
Yeah.
You know, and it just came up through focusing.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was Jewish, half Jew, half Jewish, and so he had a horrible childhood as well. I mean, he had to, like Anne Frank, he had to go from one place and hiding, etc.
Yes.
And so we never talked about that part because he couldn't. He was of the other generation, of the elder generation. He couldn't talk about it.
Okay, yeah.
But through Marta and focusing, I learned to just be free and talk about it, and you know, go to Japan and have a good time, really.
Yeah.
And so I felt so freed, and I had a girlfriend who didn't want to do that sort of thing. And, you know, she was still so bitter. She was bitter about the war. And I had my Japanese friends.
Yeah.
I wasn't bitter. Why could I? I couldn't be bitter for such nice people.
Yeah.
I couldn't. So that's, you know,
it's
what focusing did to me.
It's incredible because I've heard it saying, like, once that, you know, like you can hold on to things and you can tell yourself to let it go, but it might not be ready to let go of you. And when you focus on it and hold it and give it the space, it can just change and it's not like you're mentally telling yourself to get over it.
No, you
But
can't.
it's a feeling and it's a sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can't command yourself to get over it.
No.
The focusing is a way to, I don't know, maybe there are other ways, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But now I know that focusing is a way
Mm-hmm.
of the things that you have hidden somewhere in your body.
Yeah. And then the beauty about it is that you don't try to make yourself do anything.
No,
it's just,
no, you don't.
It's what it is what it is, and you don't have to force yourself. And yes, you might get the, that lovely letting go, but it's the non-expectation of having that really helps, doesn't it? And did you find that helped when you first encountered the Japanese ladies on the focusing course?
That what helped?
The just focusing in itself, I guess, to deal with the first interaction, I guess.
Well, I know the Japanese are easily shamed, so I did a whole week of workshop without telling them.
Okay.
That was a different one. The first one was this Japanese lady, and I took her home. I never told her about the Japanese prison camp. I didn't.
Yeah.
Because I thought she was so nice, and I knew she was going to feel very much ashamed. So I didn't talk about it. But it was some sort of experiment of myself, if I thought, I'm right, she's okay, she can't help it. And later on, of course, I told her.
Yeah.
But I didn't in the beginning, because I wasn't quite sure. And then I met 3 Japanese ladies, and also in Ireland. We were staying in a focusing workshop. And the whole week I shut up about it, because I didn't want to embarrass them. And then at the end of the week they said, how was this focusing workshop, etc. Everybody had comments. And I said to them, well, this is kind of different for me, because I come from Japanese prison camp. And they were so shocked, And then they stood up and we embraced and we cried together. And later on, but there was a Japanese man that I focused with, I still remember, in Costa Rica. And he started focusing, and I looked at him, eyes shut. And I thought, if only my mother could see me now. I'm focusing with a Japanese man.
Yeah.
That's even different than from the women. So now it's incredible what a person can do with himself if you're open to it. It's incredible. And this friend of mine, she never got over it. She was still, she died. She is dead now, and she died, and she was still, angry. And I'm not. And I was so thankful for that.
that freedom that you
grateful.
said earlier must be so such a relief to
It
feel.
It is. Yeah. Yes. It lives much easier.
Yeah. Something struck me there when you said that you were focusing with a Japanese man, and it's like, the sense of focusing in a partnership is such a safe space.
Yes.
To have the actual feel safe with something that was a threat before, or caused anger, or something like that, must have been like a huge transformation for you, was it? Or did it feel like, oh, this is right, or how did you feel when you realized what you were doing, I guess?
Yeah, it was incredible. I remember, usually I shut my eyes when I'm focusing, but I couldn't keep from just looking at him for a short, very, very short while, because I thought, geez, and my mother wouldn't believe this. Me sitting opposite a Japanese man.
Yeah.
I mean, she had such bad experiences with them. Poor thing. And I understood that. And the fact that she didn't want to talk about it, I understood that.
Yeah.
I respected that.
Yeah.
The elder generation couldn't talk about it. It was too bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I don't need to be like that generation.
Yeah.
So, I found a new way. And I hope that my daughters learned focusing. They're grown up now.
Yeah.
But I think it gives you a way of, well, to put it simply, to see things differently.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't think I have more to tell you, I guess.
How did it, did you use, after you learned it yourself, did you teach it, did you use
Oh,
it in
yes.
your work and stuff
Oh,
like
yes.
that? What did you
Yeah.
what did you do for a living?
Well, of course, I focused I went to almost every year, I went to one of the international focusing things.
Okay, yeah.
And I've been all over the world. I'm very grateful for that.
Mhm.
I've been to Costa Rica, to Japan, to
Wow.
the United States, to
Yeah.
Iceland even. So the focuses are all over the world.
Everywhere.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And what did you say? I forgot the question.
What did you do for work, or did you?
Oh, I put up a cultural information centre for the municipality of Amsterdam.
Right, okay. And did you integrate focusing a little bit into your work, or was it just...
No, not in my... Well, I'm not easily offended, let me say that, because I know how many possibilities there are.
Mm-hmm.
And no, not in my work, but I really could help people sometimes. And I helped an old man. He was 74. I've always lived in an artistic surrounding,
Mm-hmm.
I know painters and actors and musicians, and
lovely,
so I'm living in that kind of world.
Lovely.
And this guy was sitting at the artist club and drinking, and I knew he was drinking too much, of course. He was divorced, and so I made a joke. I said to him, well, are you going nicely?
Yeah.
And he knew I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it unkind. I just mocked with him.
Yes.
And then I said, well, you could try to focus, after some conversation. And he didn't react, so I thought, okay, I've told it, and that's it. Then, well, I think 2 weeks later, he called me. He said, I want to know more about focusing.
Wow. Yeah.
I said, okay, you come to my place, and we focused. And he didn't say a word.
Okay.
But I thought of Gene Gentlin. I had seen him not saying anything. I've seen it.
Yeah.
He was sitting on stage, demonstrating with this lady from Africa. And she wouldn't react at all.
Yeah.
She was very busy focusing, but she wouldn't talk.
Right.
And I remembered that.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, if you don't want to talk, you don't talk. And he stayed for 1.5 hours.
Wow.
Focusing and not talking. But I could see he was working with himself. I could see it. Mm-hmm. But I didn't dare to interrupt him. And so I said, well, if you think you've had, if you want to stop, you thank yourself. That's what you do with focusing. You don't thank the therapy.
Yes.
You thank yourself because you do the work. Mm-hmm. And then he said, oh yes, thank you. And he went away. I've never known what he was doing. And then later on, he called again. I focused with him. Same thing, hour. It took him an hour. Never talking, never mentioning anything. I just said, well, if you do this and you do relax and the whole thing. And he never said anything. And afterwards, thank you and bye-bye. And then he changed his whole life, and he was 74 years old.
Oh wow!
He said, I just asked. I said, are you okay now? He said, well, I always thought I'm so old. I'm divorced, and I can only either drink myself to death, or sit behind the geraniums, we call it, in a nursing home, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
He lived on a boat in the canals in Amsterdam. And he said, and now I've discovered another way. And he got a nice girlfriend of his own age. He changed his whole life. And I never knew what he was focusing on.
Yeah.
And I never tried to get to know it. Mm-hmm. I thought, okay, it works.
Yeah.
Let it be, let it be, let it be. I didn't want to interrupt him, so I didn't. And we're still friends. He just called me before I left for Ireland. Wow. And because he invited me for his birthday. Yeah. And I have focused twice with him, more than an hour.
Yeah.
Complete silence. At least I said to him, well, why don't you got this and that, the 6 steps. And he never reacted.
Yeah.
And then he changed his life. And I will never know why, but I don't need to.
Yeah.
It's not my problem.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I tried what I could, and I've had things like that happen before, also with a young guy who didn't want to live anymore. And I called Marta. I said, Marta, how do I?
Yeah.
Marta Stapert, she was my help.
Yeah.
And I said, well, and then she said, just do the steps, and,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Incredible.
He didn't want to go to psychotherapy, this man was a tall guy.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to do psychotherapy. And I told him, I said, I'm not a psychotherapist. I can only focus.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, it's okay. I don't want to go to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I only did twice with him, or 3 times maybe. But anyway, he picked up his life again.
Wow.
So I can do things with it. But you can do things with it by just sticking to the basic rules, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you do it too, I guess.
Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about not having to know.
That's so nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
a therapist wants to know.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're not a therapist.
No.
You don't have to know.
No, you just have to be there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Follow the steps, what Gentlin said.
Yeah.
Just follow the steps and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to know anything about other people's problems.
No.
That is so nice, but it's nice to see a transformation. You have had that too, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I still remember this dancing lady, tall lady, and she started moving her shoulder all the time. And you can say something about that. You know that, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, I can see you moving your shoulder.
Yeah.
Not more, but that you can do.
Yeah.
And she didn't answer. I don't need an answer. And then I said, my whole family is pushing me. My husband, my son. And I repeated that, as I have learned from so your whole family is pushing you. And then she kept her shoulder still. And she started smiling. And I said, you're smiling.
Yeah.
You may do that.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, that's so good of me that I can do this.
Yeah.
They can push me and I can take it,
Yes, yeah.
And she was all happy about herself,
Yeah, yeah.
So it's incredible what focusing can do, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing those light bulb moments after holding it for a while. What comes, just space and patience and
Yeah. Well, you've learned it too. If I see you have a sense of humor and your patience, and that's one of
very important.
It's a big part.
Yes, very big part of it.
Yes, you need that.
Yeah,
because so that's it.
So just before we finish up, how what was the first time meeting Jean? Had you known much? Had you known a lot about focusing and known all about it before you met Jean?
No,
or just a little bit.
No, just a bit from Marta. I did one course with her with several, 3 people or something.
Yeah,
and I got really ill, and I've had cancer.
Yeah.
So she said, why don't you come follow a course?
Yeah.
And that's how I started.
Right, okay.
With these other ladies.
Yeah.
And there were no men at that time. And so, she learned me when you have an illness. That's what Marta told me too. You just go to the place where the illness is in your body. If you have cancer, you think, oh, no, I don't want cancer.
Yeah.
And then if you can take yourself by the hand and say, okay, this place, is worried. This place is worried. And, you just be kind to it. Mm-hmm. And I learned to be kind to it. And I survived. And I was in a bad, I was stage 3, they call it. And it's a bad stage.
Right.
And I cured myself somehow.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's more than 20 years ago.
Incredible.
So I'm still there.
Yeah. We're delighted you're here and here with us in Ireland. It's so lovely to have you here. An honour to have met you. I'm so excited. So I suppose before we finish off, is there anything that you feel
No,
like...
I really want to send you the poem that Rob
Sure.
Foxcroft
Yeah,
wrote
send us
about
in.
Marta,
And I'll
because it's
add it
exactly
in.
what Marta was, how
Mhm.
she worked with children.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, she was amazing. Very tough lady. She would go for you. She would go for you.
Okay.
And she did. She climbed, once she climbed on top of me.
Okay.
And she said, you're laughing. Why are you laughing? You know, like that.
Right,
she was.
okay.
And then I see all this soft thing, and then I think, okay, they're nice. But it's not what I did with focusing. It was really tough.
It was really tough.
Yeah, it wasn't like smiling all the time.
Okay,
No.
yeah.
So I have a problem shutting up.
I'm delighted.
You are?
Yeah, amazing. It was amazing to talk to you and to get to know Martha a bit more through you,
Yes.
which is incredible. So it's amazing to get a sense of her.
Yeah.
Just by listening to your stories and
Yeah, but she came out of the war too.
Yeah.
She was also a child in the war.
Yeah.
So she knows that life is not so easy. Cannot be so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, of course it can be easy too. But you know what I mean. She knew how unexpected life can be.
Yeah.
Well, this is it, because I'm speaking English all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking in my native language.
Yes, yeah, no, that's
So
okay.
I'm sort of tired now.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
The morning after our chat, Josine received the poem Marta, that one that she wanted to share earlier, the one that was written for Marta Stapert by Rob Foxcroft. Josine shared this beautiful poem at breakfast, and it brought a tear to many people's eyes, especially those who remembered Marta. This poem can be found in Rob's book, Feeling Heard, Hearing Others, page 154. So that evening, we got a chance to record Josine reciting this poem. So here it is now.
Marta by Rob Foxcroft, for my special friend Marta Stapert, the focusing lady. Marta used to teach children with a problem for 20 years, and she started focusing with children in Holland. I think it didn't start anywhere else. Mm-hmm. I think she really started it for the first time for anybody. Anyway, I hate teachers. I hate school. My teacher said ridiculous, and I felt a fool. The kids all hate me. They call me Jelly, little Miss Fat with a great big belly. They were horrible. They don't know how it felt. Dad said, "Don't be stupid," and he hit me with his belt. Marta came to school, and she sat quite near. I was scared, 'cause it felt dead queer. She asked, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I'm fat." She pointed to my tummy, and she said, "There, that? Can you feel it inside?" And I said, "Yes, it's a great lump of jelly and an unhappy mess." I started to cry, but Marta said, "Draw." I took a black crayon into my paw. I don't know how to draw, so I just went scribble, and something paid attention down there in my middle. I filled all the paper with a big black sad. I was heard by all the children and the teacher and Dad. Marta smiled gently. She asked, "Is there more?" I screwed up the paper and threw it on the floor. I tried to draw a flower, and it wasn't quite right, but I gave it to Marta, and she held it tight. "I'll keep this forever," she said as she smiled. I think she's an angel, and I am just a child. The rain stopped falling, and the sun began to shine, and I'll always know that Marta is a friend of mine. April 2009.